Hi everyone, can you see me, hear me? Can you let me know in the chat if you can hear me? Okay, thank you guys. Thank you. I thought I would just start like 2 minutes in advance just to do a check-in. I asked you all the questions. Just let me know in the chat how are you all feeling. Okay, so I'm seeing great, excited. Excited, okay. Okay, this reminds me of something. There used to be a professor at IIM Ahmedabad. So when she started taking the classes now, she used to come to the class and she always used to ask, how are you guys feeling? And our common response used to be good, awesome, excited. Just like mean that like we don't feel great all the time, but we just hesitate sometimes saying that we're not feeling okay. So for example, I for a matter have had a very busy week, and I would really appreciate a weekend. So yeah, I'm like feeling tired. That's the real that's the real situation. So I'm asking you guys again, how are you feeling? So I finally found डर लग रहा है cat को लेके. A bit tired, yeah. Demotivated, worried. Can understand. Hey, hi. Tensed. Yeah. I'm also feeling very tired since the last 1 week. So, yeah. Feeling lost, tensed. I can tell you for a fact that a lot of people, change their entire journeys. So, I know of a person who, in just 2 months, tried to change around her scores, and she wasn't really a great student or something. She had, in fact, a very weak quant base, but she was able to change her entire journey. So, you can do it for sure. Hi, everyone. So, most of you are here. So, we'll start the class. And I would just say don't worry a lot. Just trust the process, keep working, be consistent. You'll be able to do it. You guys are not able to hear, kya? Can you confirm if you can hear me? Okay. Okay, so I will start off with the message that the team wanted me to pass to you all. There is an All India mock test series going on, which is going to start from July. So these are free mocks that Unacademy conducts every year. There are going to be 5 of them starting July 10th. It's going to take place from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. So you can enroll for these tests. Let me paste this link. You can simply enroll for them. These are absolutely free. And the good part is that these are based on the CAT pattern. So when you take these mocks, you'll be able to understand how exactly last year's CAT was. And you can also win scholarships. There are going to be like 5,000 aspirants taking them. So you can check your standing as well. And if you get a scholarship in this, the immediate batch that's going to take place is the Emerge batch. This is starting from 14th of July. And there are lots of good educators in this, including Bharat sir and Ravi and Suman as well. So you can definitely check out this if you are interested. I have added the link to both of them in the pinned comment, and you can also see my code here. So make a choice basis your interest. You can explore the session also and try understanding if you would like to go for it. But for now, let me give you 2 disclaimers before starting this. First of all, I am not a teacher. So this I finally understood when I was to review all the CAT previous papers, especially of DILR. I cannot teach you DILR. There are far better teachers out there who will do this job. But what I'm going to do in this session is I'll be sharing some strategies that I believe would help you understand what goes in an aspirant's mind. Let's say a 99 percentiler who is attempting this paper, when he or she sees the DILR section, what should ideally go in their mind. So I will mainly be focusing on the attempt strategies. Then I will also talk about some tricks that I found when I reviewed all those 5-year past year papers. I found some tricks that were very common, and I also used them during my preparation, so would surely help you. And the second thing is, last time we did a VRC session, and I promised that in the end I'll take a Q&A, but there wasn't enough time. So in case there are any questions that are left, just put them in the comments. So there are new videos that come on my YouTube channel on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Simply post them there and I'll try replying to all of them in case there is not enough time left for the Q&A session, right? So hi, good evening everyone. We are going to start off with this. So first of all, I'm going to show you the DILR set analysis. So while I was going through the different sets that came in the DILR section, this is the first thing I noticed. Although I reviewed the papers from 2017 onward, here I have only put up the latest 3 slots from 2020 and 2021. And the simple reason is because the pattern changed after 2020. So I thought it will make more sense to show you this first. So can anybody guess what does these colors represent? Like you are preparing for CAT, this should be a cakewalk, but what do these colors represent according to you? Yes, so this is basically the difficulty level. Here, if you see the green colored ones, these are basically the questions or the sets that were of easier level. Yellow represents medium, and the orange ones are medium to difficult, and the red ones were very, very difficult, right? Out of these, you would see some of the circles have a boundary in black. Those are the DI sets. So the point I want to make here is no matter which slot you pick up, out of whichever year you pick up, what you would notice is there was always at least one either medium to difficult, that is orange colored, or a red set. There was always, you can check any of them, and this goes back till 2017. There were always sets that were of a higher difficulty level, either medium or difficult, like medium to difficult or difficult. So when I analyzed this, one thing was pretty evident. No matter how good you are at DILR, this section across since many, many years has been asking you sets that you're actually supposed to skip. So whenever someone is preparing for this section, you should keep this in mind. You cannot focus on attempt rate in this particular section. In the last session, when we did a VRC session, I told you that attempt rate matters a lot there. But in this case, instead, I feel accuracy matters a lot, because there are always at least 1 or 2 sets that you're actually supposed to skip. Is this much part clear to everyone? Like, did you get this point that there will always be some sets that you're actually supposed to skip in this exam? Okay. Okay, right. Now I will talk about the number that is written in front of every single slot. This number represents, and listen carefully because this is a different point. The number that is written in front, that percentage, is the percentage of attempts that a person could have made in that particular section. Like in DILR 2020 slot 1, you could have attempted 62% questions. From the point of view of many coaching institutes, what they are suggesting is these are the number of attempts not needed for a 99 percentile. These are actually the attempts that you could have made. The others you should have ideally skipped. For a 99 percentile, you might have needed only 45% marks, or let's say 50% marks at max. These are actually the number of questions that you could have attempted, which means the others need to be skipped. Once this point is clear to you, I would move to the next slide, which will tell you that there are 3 rules in DILR to score well. The first is set selection is the key. Now, why am I saying this? Because like I told you, in this particular slide, if you see, the orange ones are ideally to be skipped, or the red ones are ideally to be skipped. If that is the case, that means half of the paper, or probably 60% of the paper, is the only thing that you can actually attempt. So you need to identify which sets are to be attempted and which sets are to be skipped. So now the first thing that I'm going to help you walk through is how do you select the sets that are to be attempted, and how do you skip the sets that are of a difficulty level. Is that clear to anyone? Like, is that clear to everyone? Everyone gets this, that you need to select the right sets in order to score well in DILR. Okay. Now, this part might seem slightly boring to a couple of you. So what I'm going to do is CAT 2021 slot 1, we are going to walk through the 4 sets. You don't have to necessarily understand each and every set. Like, you don't have to grasp what the set is saying. You just have to simply read it along with me. And since it might not be visible to a lot of you, like it will be a small screen for you, I'll try reading it for you. And you just have to walk with me. From first set onward, it will become clear to you what we are doing. But I'm going to help you understand how do you identify which set should you skip and which set should you attempt, right? So this is a graph that was given in the first set. Then it said something like this. This was a paragraph that followed. It said the horizontal bars in the above diagram represent 2020 aggregate sales of a company of the different subcategories of its products. So what this is basically saying is, I'm just explaining the first one. We'll not be doing this with every other set, but I'm just trying to help you understand what is it saying. It says that these horizontal bars are suggesting what the 2020 sales were. Then it says the top four product categories are these. They belong to the furniture category, bottom four or to some other category, and the middle ones to some other category. The reason I'm not naming those categories is because right now we are in that stage when we'll be just scanning through the sets. So we don't have to remember anything. We just have to walk through them very quickly. And then it says that there is a vertical line that indicates the corresponding subcategory sales in 2019. So here, this vertical line is suggesting what the 2019 sales was. This was the entire paragraph. Uske baad there came 4 questions or 5 questions. How many number of questions were there? So in this particular set, there was a graph, then there was this much paragraph. So the first thing that would come to my mind when I would read this is, first of all, this is a data interpretation set. That is the first thing I would deduce. Second thing I would deduce is, this is an understandable set. For me, I'm able to understand what this set is basically saying. Like, I don't have to get into the details of how to solve it, but I at least understood what is the statement of this set. Second thing, this is a short set. So there are not a lot of constraints. So LR mein aisa hota na, you see there are 9 points, 10 points that follow a statement. Here, there is nothing like that. There is a graph, there is a small paragraph. So these are the 3 things that I can understand and I can note down very quickly, immediately when I read this particular set. Now we are going to move to set number 2 and we are going to repeat this process, and you are going to help me understand what do you think, which section it belongs to, whether it is DI or LR, whether it's understandable or not, and whether this is lengthy or a short one, right? Got it? So read this statement. I would request all of you to read this and identify these. Okay. So a lot of you are already writing LR, which is great that you've identified this is an LR set. Now I'm going to, if you've read this part, I'll move to the next one. Okay, Gaurav is saying it's not understandable. Should I move to the next part? Okay. Then there was this table given. After whatever you've read, this table was given. After this, there were these 5 constraints. So if you just go through this, can you let me know if this set is understandable for you? Are you able to understand what it's saying? Okay. Okay, so a lot of you are saying that it is understandable. What do you think is the length of this set? Is this short, medium, lengthy? Okay. So a lot of you are like moving towards lengthy, but a couple of you are also saying this is medium. So I'll share what my response would have been. It is perfectly okay if your response is different from mine, because every person would be at a different stage of their preparation, and it's perfectly okay. You have to attempt the sets, right? So do this exercise based on your own understanding. For me, this would have been an LR set, understandable and of a medium length. For me, 5 constraint means a gem of an LR set. Like LR may 5 constraints is very less, and there's only one table which is also very understandable. So according to me, this would have been a medium length, but it's still understandable. Plus, I would have marked a star here because personally, I loved LR a lot. Like as compared to DI, I absolutely loved LR. And these are exactly the kind of questions that were familiar for me. So for me, this constraint wala set, especially where there is some people are your friends, acquaintances, these kind of puzzles were very familiar for me. So I would mark a star here. Whenever you find a set which you have either already solved or you feel very comfortable with, for example, seating arrangements is also something I was familiar with. So I would mark a star there, right? Is this much clear? We'll move to the next set then. Okay, awesome. Now you're getting a hang of this. Now you have to do it for the third set also. So this is a lot of text, but go through it. Okay. Yeah, LR mostly. LR. Naman will take all the questions towards the end. Okay, awesome. You're already saying that it's lengthy, but after this, there were 9 more constraints after this paragraph. So yeah, This is LR, and this is definitely lengthy. But was it understandable? Like, did you guys at least get the statement of the first part? Okay. Okay. So I would have been on the same side. I would have said this is an LR set, understandable and lengthy. And since you have already done this exercise, I'll just brush past the fourth one. The fourth one had this statement. You don't have to go through it. I'll simply walk you through it. It had this statement, then it had this table, then it had some more information, and then it just said that this is the revenue that they earn, and then there were questions. So for me, okay, so there were four constraints also. So for me, this was a DI set. It was understandable, but it was very lengthy. Like I said, it's 4-5 slides, so it was a lot of information. It was definitely lengthy, but it was still understandable, right? I walked you through the set quickly so that we, make the point that we want to. Here we don't want to solve these questions, we simply want to make a point that once we have scanned these four sets, my diary, or let's say if I'm in the final exam, that rough sheet would have looked something like this. So I would have written first set DI, understandable and short, something like this, right? Now a lot of people also like to use stars here, wherein they're like, if it's an LR set, they would put a star because LR, they're comfortable with it. Then if it's understandable, another star, and they will try to pick up a set which has most number of stars. You can do whatever you liked. I'll tell you why I started doing this as compared to marking stars all over, because I preferred LR sets over DI. So if I ever had to make a choice, like a tiebreaker between two sets, I always preferred an LR set first, which is why I did this. So this is how it would have looked like. Now, this is my order of attempt. Everyone got this, what we are doing here? Like, is it understandable? Okay. So here, because the second set was a medium length set, but it was an LR set and it was also understandable, it would have been my first preference. All the more because it was a familiar set for me. This is a type that I absolutely loved. So this would have been my first choice. Then I would have attempted the first set, which was a short one, and it was a DI one. It is okay if it's a DI set because I don't have a problem with DI, but I would prefer LR over it. Then I would have made a choice between third and fourth. Now in third and fourth, every single variable is the same. The only difference is that the third one is an LR set, which is why I would have picked it up next. But if I was to show you what was the actual difficulty level of these sets, you would see that I would have made the right choice with the first set and the second set. I would have been attempting an easy set and then a medium set. But the trap would have been when I would have happened to pick the third set, because it was actually of a medium to difficult level as compared to of a medium level, which was the fourth one. So ideally my attempt should have been first, second and fourth and not the third one. Is that clear to everyone? Okay. Yes, Sakshi. Like ideally, I should have skipped that, but because I'm telling you what I would have done if I was facing this paper. Right now, I know that the third one is the most difficult one. But us samay, because I preferred LR, I would have definitely gone for the third one. But now I'm going to walk you through what would happen next. Till now, what we have covered is how do you pick the sets? Familiarity should be your number one priority. If you have seen a set before, definitely go after it. Second should be the length, or whether it's understandable or whether it's a DI or LR. DI or LR, I would keep as a tiebreaker, and I would keep it as a last pointer to decide which set I would attempt first. Is that okay? Yeah, I will walk you through how much time it should take. In fact, that's an excellent question because that is the next point I want to talk about. So till here, what I've talked about is how do you exactly pick up the sets? What should be your order of attempting the sets? But like you see, one set over here would have been a difficult set, which means I need to make a careful choice because every single second will count in this exam. I am already telling you, you won't be able to attempt all the sets, which means you already know that you'll be spending some time on a set and actually leaving it, which means you'll have less time left for the other set. So you have to make every single second count. Now, how do we do that? There are going to be, okay, I'm just assuming here that the same pattern will follow as last year. In last year, there were 40 minutes and you have to solve 20 questions in the DILR section. But I would just like to change it slightly and tell you You have to actually solve just 15 questions in 40 minutes. Why am I saying that? Because like I mentioned, one set or 1.5 sets would be of a sort that you might actually have to skip. So you just have to solve 15 questions in 40 minutes. Now, if you have to solve these questions, let's assume that the gray ones are actually your sets, and on the top in the columns you can see scan, attempt and solve. Now I'm going to tell you how much time ideally I would have spent on scanning each set, attempting each set and solving each set. I'll walk you through this process, right? Gaurav is saying 5 cannot happen, either 4 or 6. Yeah, I mean, you can always pick a question which is easier in a difficult set. If you've just read the statement, you can still solve it, but that's perfectly fine. Just assume that ballpark 15 questions is what you'll be targeting. Now, if you have to scan, I would have ideally spent only 30 seconds in scanning a particular question. I know this sounds very weird, but when you attempt your next mock, just practice this. Like I was walking you through each set. Here, I spent a lot of time because I was trying to explain to you what that set meant. When you go through a set, all you have to note down is number 1, is it DIRLR? Number 2, is it understandable? Number 3, what is the what is the length of this particular set? You have to do this entire thing in 30 seconds. Now imagine how quick you'll actually have to be. I'll also share a reason why this is very important, why the scanning exercise is important. You will be attempting the VARC section first. You'll be exhausted after 40 minutes, let's say. You will directly be moved to another section altogether. Your attention span, or let's say your ability to concentrate, would not be at its peak at the moment. So if you know that by default in the first 2 minutes, all you have to do is to scan through the questions, you will get into the gear. Otherwise it will take you a lot of time to come back on track, right? So the first thing you have to do is to scan through these 4 sets, 30 seconds per set, and you have to walk past them. This will take you 2 minutes. The next thing you have to do, you have to spend 3 minutes trying to attempt that particular set. Now, if you note here, I put 3 minutes in front of each and every set. Why did I do that when you're actually supposed to skip a set? This is because in this situation, when I would have attempted the first 2 sets and I would have landed on the dreadly set, I would still be trying it out, right? In order to understand this is a difficult set, I would still be spending some time on it. That time, that limit for me, I would have set as 3 minutes. So 3 minutes is the maximum I would put on a set. I would not let my ego come in the way. If I'm not able to solve, I'll just skip it. I'll move to the next one. It's okay if the next one also you're not able to solve, but there is no point spending more than 3 minutes on a set if you're not able to solve it. Is that clear to everyone? Everyone is getting this? Okay. Basically, what I'm saying is there should be whatever that number is, whatever you feel comfortable with. If it's 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, that's totally up to you. What I'm saying is you need to have that number in mind. You need to have an internal clock that tells you, okay, 2 minutes are up or 3 minutes are up, I need to move past. When you move past, then will come the stage of solving the questions. Now here you would have already pointed out that this is a set I'm not able to solve. I'll mark it, I'll move to the next. So here I would say try solving that set under 8 minutes. So you have 3 minutes to attempt a set and you have 8 minutes to actually solve that set. In total, that gives you about 11 minutes to solve a particular set. Is that clear to everyone? This entire exercise will take 38 minutes in total. You can also use additional 2 minutes, give more time to scanning the questions. This is entirely up to you how you want to do it. I'm just giving you an idea of how I would have done it, right? Yeah, so Vivek is asking, what if both the sets you are not able to solve? See, that's the whole point. It might so happen, but even then you have to practice this to attempt the set in 3 minutes and leave it and move it to the next one. Zyada se zyada kya ho jayega? You won't be able to attempt even a single set in the CAT exam, right? Like in your mocks. But it will help you understand that there's this biological clock, there's this internal clock that's running so that you don't end up wasting your time on a difficult one. अगर ऐसा हो जाता है, then look at the analysis of that mock and try understanding why you were not able to attempt an easier one. But it's always better than spending your time on a difficult one and losing out on the opportunity to score marks, right? Okay. So this is how your flow chart would look like. If you want to take a screenshot, just take a screenshot of this. You can change the numbers basis your requirement. What I would do is I would scan all the sets. First of all, when I see the DILR section, the moment it switches from VRC to DILR, I will scan all the sets within 2 minutes. Then I'll create an order of the sets. Then I'll attempt the first set for three minutes in total. If I'm not getting anywhere, I'll skip it after 3 minutes. If I'm able to solve it, like if I feel like it's solvable, I'll have 8 minutes to solve that question, right? This is the second part. Oh, it's a screenshot is not available. Then you guys can take a note. I'll just wait here for 1 minute. You can take a note. If you've already taken a note, just make sure that you change these numbers basis your own internal requirement, basis how comfortable you feel with the section. Okay. Should I move to the next slide? Now we are done with both the parts. Now we know every single second matters. We also know that we have to pick the right sets. Okay. Rohit, jaldi kar lo. Okay. All right. The third one is that you cannot afford to make any mistakes. Like I mentioned, in VARC, attempt ka game hai. And in quant ka section, it's all about, so in quants, it's actually both. Quant mein you need both accuracy and attempts. And the simple logic is ki engineers bahut hote hain, so they attempt a lot and they also get it right. But in case of DILR, the accuracy matters. In case of, like I showed you the different sets also across different slots, right? You're actually supposed to skip some sets, like not all of them, but some sets. So it is more so about not making any mistakes. Agar attempt karne ke liye anyway number of sets come hai. If there are only a few sets that you can actually attempt, you have to get them right. So maximum 1 or 2 questions are that you can afford to get wrong. Otherwise you have to attempt them with the intent that you have to get them right. So what I'm basically going to do here is I'm going to share 3 tips, or let's say tricks, that I found during my preparation. And while I was going through the different slots and different questions, different sets, I realized that these tricks will actually help you not make a mistake, right? The first one is called nomenclature. Now, what I basically mean here is I'll have to walk you through a set to explain this. I already showed this to you. You would have already read it. Just read the first line very quickly once again, right? Just read the first line. If I have to take these names, I'll be like Amudha, Bharatan, Chandra, Dinesh, Izil, Fanny, Gotham are 7 people in a town. Like when I'm reading this set, this is how I would have read it if I was not a very serious aspirant. But exactly, like a lot of you are also saying, right, that you have to use the initials. Rather than writing them on a piece of paper like this, you have to use initials. This much everybody would be clear with, right? You have to use it like this. But what I'm trying to explain to you is that sometime, for example, in CAT 2018, this is a set that came. Now give it a read, like spend some time on this and try reading it and let me know how you would have noted this down. Okay, so Rohan is saying first 2 initials, but Rohan, then Bandita and Barun would have been same. Okay, so Bhuvneshwar, I am not able to read your entire name, but you said it absolutely correct. Okay. You can't use ABCD because then entirely similar ho jayega dono mein. Okay, you can use first and last. A lot of you are suggesting many methods. Some of you are saying A1, A2, A3. I personally feel usse zyada acha hai that you use some parts of that name, because A1, A2, then you'll have to backtrack ki A1 kya tha and then what was A2. That will be like slightly difficult. But the way I would have done it, and you can have a completely different method, totally up to you. The way I would have done it, generally I use the first 2 letters only, first 2 alphabets only. But the reason why I am using a mix of them and not even, let's say, the first 3, because in some cases it might like create some amount of confusion. I have just used a mix of alphabets that make me understand what that name is. You can use it entirely up to you, like entirely up to you how you want to write it. It has to be your nomenclature. Another thing that I used to do was I always denoted the females by a circle and the males by a square. Now, this is a practice that I followed even while solving the questions, like while practicing. And a lot of you would actually be doing it already. Like if I ask you, how do you make diagrams, or how do you denote these names, or how do you denote females and males and, friends and enemies? Do you have some symbols for them? You would already be having these. What I want you to do is to keep them consistent. This will help you from not making a mistake. Sometimes what happens is we use this nomenclature, but we keep wearing it while practicing. And then जब mock का pressure होता है या final exam होता है, we end up using an altogether new nomenclature. This is what I observed when I was taking mocks, that I would follow very different nomenclature while practicing. But when I was taking mocks, itna pressure hota tha. I started writing the full name. Sometimes I started circling rather than putting it in a square. Like I always mixed it up, which made me make a mistake. Reason being, my subconscious mind already knew what my existing nomenclature was. So I ended up making a mistake not knowing what it was denoted by. You have to keep it consistent. That's the first step. Is that clear? A lot of you are using arrows also. Yeah, so you can use arrows also. Yes. Okay. So the first and the simple tip is you have to keep this nomenclature consistent. Whatever it is, it can be anything. It just has to be yours, right? The second is making the right diagrams. Now, this should be very intuitive. This should be a no-brainer that you have to make the right diagrams. But what happens is, if you read a statement and you're not able to visualize the right diagram, you would just simply end up making something. Then you would attempt that particular set. After that, you would check out the solution and you'll be like, okay, aise karna tha, got it. But you would not lay a lot of emphasis on drawing the right diagrams. When I started my preparation, I realized that quant mein there's always a formula book. You would have seen a lot of people making formula books, right? But DILR mein people generally don't take a note of these tricks. I also forgot to, or even if I did, I lost my notebook. But at the same time, when I was practicing, I came across these tricks in the solution and they were not explicitly mentioned. So in quants, it would be explicitly mentioned that this is a formula or this is a trick we use to solve this question. But in DILR, you have to be very observant and you have to notice yourself. What is the diagram that is being drawn? And is there a reason behind it? Can it help me from not making a mistake? I'll give you an example to illustrate this. If I say 8 people are seated around a circular table equidistant from each other, you would imagine something, right? There'll be a diagram that comes to your mind. Is this what's coming to your mind? Like, would you draw it something like this? Okay. So a lot of you are saying that you would draw something like this, right? If I was at your place, in fact, when I was at your place, when I started this, right? I started doing this as well. So like Pradyat is also saying, I'll draw 8 dots. I would also draw this. I actually drew this exactly when I made a mistake. And I'll tell you why. When I saw the solution in the book, I saw that in every circular arrangement question, I don't know why they were using these lines. It was not clear to me why they were using it until I made the mistake. In fact, they not only drew these lines, what I also noticed is they had a pattern. So if you have to make 4 people sit around a circle, you would be using 2 lines. So exactly half of the number of people you want to be seated around the circular table. For 6, they use 3 lines. For 8, they use 4 lines. They always drew these lines. I never understood why until I made a mistake. So when you want A to sit exactly opposite to B, let's say that's a constraint given to you in this question, that A sits exactly opposite to B. If you have to make A sit opposite to B using this lines method, you can easily do that. You can make them sit anywhere across, right? But if you were drawing the dots, you would not have been sure if they're equidistant from each other. When I was drawing this diagram, once I made this terrible mistake of not putting the dots equidistant from each other, and I ended up letting A sit not opposite to B, but what seemed opposite to me, right? And that's when I made this mistake. So the second thing I want you to remember is that diagrams are crucial. They are very important. And when you look at the solution, don't just check the solution to see how it was to be solved. See if the person who is making the diagram, whether that diagram was exactly similar to your diagram or was there a difference. Because if there is a difference, that will help you understand what the right technique is, what the right trick is, right? This is not written anywhere. So It might be possible that your teachers are teaching this to you right now. This is something that I learned when I saw the solution in that book. I wasn't able to figure out why I made that mistake, and when I saw that solution, I realized, oh, I should have used these lines, right? Yes, so Himanshu said exactly this. So even for sitting inside a circle and outside a circle, like whether you're facing the center of the circle or not facing, this is the diagram that they used to draw. So take a note of these small things, take a note of these diagrams. That will help you understand where you make these mistakes. Okay. So your job from now on should be, you have to visualize the right diagrams whenever you read a statement. And for this, we are going to do an exercise. So I'm going to ask you, by the way, I took CAT 2017, but and slot 2. So this was exactly the question that I saw in the paper, but I skipped. This was a difficult one. But go through the statement once and try visualizing just this much. This is not the complete statement. Just go through this much and imagine what comes to your mind. When you're done, just put a yes or next slide in the chat. Shruti is asking, where can we connect with you other than YouTube? Only YouTube, Shruti. Okay, done. Yes, it is an absolutely terrible set. I hated this when I was solving it. Okay, so you guys are at least like you're able to imagine something, right? And especially if those of you who have traveled by flight, you would know this is exactly like how it appears in the flight, right? So something like this should be there in your mind or on a piece of paper. Like, of course, you will not be drawing these seats exactly, but something of this sort, like something similar to this should have come to your mind. Is this much clear? Now we are moving on to the last trick. Okay. Let's talk about the last trick, which is my absolute favorite. It's called constraints. And now I'm going to share a line, which is actually a Roman verse. How many of you have heard of this? And if you have heard of this, how many of you actually saw this in a web series? And if you have, which one is it? All things work together for good. Has any one of you heard of this? Or you're not watching web series? Oh, thank God someone has watched this. Okay, so Sonia guessed it right. It comes in Manifest. I watched it, actually binge watched it. If you get some time, do watch it. It's an excellent web series. They say all things come together for good. So even though this is a Roman verse, in this particular web series, they basically say that all the things are connected to each other. Now, when I actually heard it over there also, I was able to relate it so well to the DILR section. I want you to think of every single line given in that particular set as if it is connected to something else. Now, why am I saying this? If there is an interviewer like or a paper setter and they're making the CAT exam, they're making the DILR set, why would they want to give you an additional information without it coming into picture? It might so be possible that they want to trick you, but there's a very good chance that if there is something written, if there's something given, they're not wasting your time. They want you to try and understand how it is to be used. How is that constraint relevant, right? It can be for confusion, but it's not necessarily for confusion all the time. In fact, most of the things that you'll be seeing, you would be skipping over thinking they're not important, but they actually are. I'll in fact give you this example. You just went through the set wherein a couple of people were seated in a flight, right? The next line, the immediately next line was, seats marked by consecutive letters are called consecutive seats. Now, those of you who have traveled by flight, right, you would know that if A is consecutive to B, like it's a consecutive letter, A and B are like they sit together, right? They're consecutive seats. Why would a paper setter want to give you this unnecessary piece of information? It makes no sense why they would want to waste your time by telling you this. The reason they are doing this is because if this is the setting, if this is the picture that you drew, in this case, C and D are actually consecutive seats by this logic. Now, if you are, let's say, traveling with your boyfriend or girlfriend and you are in a flight, if you are seated on seat C and your boyfriend or girlfriend is seated on seat D, would you say they are consecutive seats? You'll be like, no, we are far apart, right? They're not consecutive seats. But by this logic, when they say that the seats marked by consecutive letters are consecutive seats, C and D become consecutive seats. And this was exactly what mattered in the set. This constraint exactly mattered in the set because it changed, it helped you reach the right answer. If you could not decode C and D wala point, you would not have been able to solve the set, even though I would have ideally skipped the set. But you would not have been able to solve this set without knowing that C and D are actually consecutive seats. Is this much clear? Did you get this? So if there is a piece of information that is being given to you in the paper, there is a high chance, there is a very, very good likelihood that it will make or break that set. So whenever you are reading a DILR set, if you come across a line which makes you feel like, oh, just skip over, this is irrelevant information, it might actually be the line that you have to focus a lot on and not skip over it, right? So I'm going to give you the final example of proving the same point. If I ask you that there are 5 seats in total and you want to make B sit exactly between A and C, how would you do that? Just think of the diagram or even write it on a piece of paper if you have one. How would you make B sit exactly between A and C if you have 5 seats? Okay, Gaurav has actually typed them also. I'll give you like a minute to do this. Yes. So what Arundhati said is absolutely correct. And that's the point I want to make here. Most of you would have imagined something of that sort, like you would have put B sitting exactly between A and C, something like this. But it can also be done in this way. And someone says B is sitting exactly between A and C, what they're basically saying is that the distance between A and B and C is the same. That can also be done here. Why are they saying exactly between? They're stressing on it for a reason. You have to pick on these constraints. You have to be very mindful while reading them because these are exactly the things that the paper setup will use. उस पे थोड़ा तरस खाओ, वो जो भी paper set कर रहा है, they also have limited ways to confuse you, right? So read every constraint very, very carefully. They're going to help you decode this further. This is just the last point, that if it's been given to you, if it's been mentioned, there is a good reason why. Try identifying that why. So I think we've finished 20 minutes early. And if there is any question that you would like to ask, this time we can take a lot of questions. Okay. Oh, you guys have already asked a lot of questions. So Gyan has asked, which one is more easy, DI or LR? It is absolutely your take. For some people DI, for some people LR, absolutely as per you. There is no pattern as such that I could find wherein LR sets came as more difficult or DI ones came as more difficult. It can definitely be dependent on the paper. Pick basis your choice and keep DI and LR as a tiebreaker for you, right? Can you explain the strategy to study all the subjects parallelly? I think what I've said on the YouTube channel as well is that basically in a particular day, if you pick up two sections, and one of them being your weaker section, you can do it parallelly. So for me, quants was my weakest. So I studied quants every day. And then one day I clubbed it with DI and the other day I clubbed it with verbal ability. So clearly, like you can pick up all three as well. You can pick up one as well. This is the strategy that worked the best for me. What is the most efficient way of reading charts and tables in DI? The most efficient way, like I don't know what should be the most efficient way. I simply started practicing these questions more and more, and with more and more practice, I just became comfortable with them. I think so. In case of charts and tables, what I've noticed is most of the information is actually explained to you. So even in the first set you saw, right, I had mentioned that there's a table and it automatically explained to you. So I don't know what you mean by reading those bar graphs or those charts. They're actually explained in the paragraph that follows them itself. So yeah. What is the importance of Trigno and clocks in QA? In QA, Trigno is not asked, even clocks, nothing of that sort. Like I would have skipped these two chapters entirely. Trigno is given in some books, but I don't think it's a part of CAT syllabus. Don't know if it changed after 2017, but it's not. how many questions we should solve in each section, VRC, DILR, and cons. So in the verbal ability section, I had suggested to attempt 90% questions with 80% accuracy. That's personally my take. If you attempt that, you would land somewhere around 80% attempt and 70% accuracy. Even that is good enough. But target 90-80. In DILR, like I mentioned, about 75% attempt with close to 90% accuracy would be great. But if you shoot for the stars, that's how you land on moon, something of that sort, right? So try hitting a little higher. And in cons, generally the attempt should be somewhere close to 80 to 90%. But if you are a non-engineer, you can target 80% also. I think I started off with 80, went close to 90, but then somewhere in the average was 85. So yeah, that should be the attempt rate ideally. Without the timer, I'm able to do the DILR questions, but with the timer on, I freak out every time and make silly mistakes. What to do? I think one thing that you can definitely do is that when you are practicing, start putting up a timer. That will help you, because when you're solving just one set, and that too, you can use this strategy that you try attempting that set. Like imagine that you have to read it in 30 seconds, you have to attempt it in 3 minutes, and then you have to try solving it. After 3 minutes, on the piece of paper, just write down whether it's a solvable set or whether you're not moving forward. That would help you with that biological clock thing. But when you're practicing, if you put a timer, that will help you cope with stress. Other than that, this whole technique of what I suggested to move on to the next set, that also helps sometimes. So in DILR, often what used to happen is when I used to take mocks, hamare 8 set hote the, like 8 sets. You guys are still lucky. I don't know, maybe. So we used to have 8 sets. So when I started off with the DILR section and I would go through the 8 sets, I would be like, okay, I have my order in place. I would start off with the first one. Generally, I was able to solve it. Second one, I was stuck. Third, stuck. Fourth, stuck. I used to feel what is happening. Like the first time I practiced it, it was really scary. But the more I started doing this, I realized that this technique at least helped me land at more than 50% attempt every single time. I don't know how it happened, but towards the end, everything came together for the good. I don't know how it happened, but it was just that when you skip a set knowing after spending 3 minutes on it, you know the in and out of the set. So then when you have to make a choice of which set to pick to solve it, to try, you know exactly which ones not to. And that is actually what you're supposed to do in DILR. You're not supposed to know which sets to pick and to solve. You're actually supposed to know which is the hardest set and which one you shouldn't be attempting at all. So try this technique out. It should ideally help you. Will you be taking regular classes here so that we can have a regular mentor? Shan, I don't know. Like I said, I already had such a hectic week. I'm not sure if this is going to be a regular thing. Moreover, I don't know if I can actually, like, if I have more stuff to share, because like I said, I'm not a teacher, but I can probably take sessions to help you with strategies if that's something you're comfortable with. Because in case of my YouTube videos, I try making them crisp and to the point, but here I can take questions. So yeah, I mean, if that is something you guys would like, in fact, can I take this in the chat box? Would you guys want more strategy sessions here? Like if you could let me know. QA ki masterclass. I don't know if I can help you with QA. Okay, thanks guys. I don't know if I can help you with QA, but there's a video coming tomorrow on the channel for those of you who are weak in QA like I was. So I can help you with a couple of things. Probably not a master class for sure. Okay. Let me check more doubts. I think the doubts keep moving up and down because you upvote for them. So if you like any of these doubts, you can just upvote them so that I take them first. Okay. Okay, slowly upvote them so that I can also read them at the same time. Last question. Okay, Ishan has asked, last question, what would be the pattern like? Where would be, okay, I'm not able to read it because you guys are now upvoting. Okay, where would B sit like? You told A, B, C. This can be so. What would be the correct answer? So that will entirely depend on the question. Here I just took an example to illustrate it. Okay. I got -2 in VRC and AIM CAT. Should I leave CAT preparation? No, absolutely not. I mean, you can leave CAT preparation if you're not interested in doing an MBA, but your mock score shouldn't be a reason at all. I don't know how many of you have seen Hemant's session on the channel. He shared that he had scored marks in negative in every single section, and he was still able to score above 95 in both the sections, in DIL, in quant and verbal ability as well. So this is no reason. Himanshu, I'm not sure if you've seen the last class on verbal ability. Just try going through it. There I've tried explaining how you have to first of all work on your attempt rate and then try improving your accuracy rate in VARC. Ideally, in all the sections, that's the strategy you're supposed to use. Like if you follow the right process, you should be able to do well. Okay. Drishti has asked time material or Arun Sharma, which one is better? I think that's the question, right? For DILR prep. Oh, so this is an important point. I personally feel for DILR, nothing would suffice. Like no material that you use or any material or every material, nothing would be sufficient. Instead, I would recommend you to try as many unconventional sets as possible. So for example, I remember when I was preparing, one of my cousins was taking bank exams at that point of time. So she just told me that there's a very difficult set in SBI PO exam. And I was very confident that, I'm preparing for the CAT exam. What could be more difficult? I'll be like, okay, I'll solve it. I tried it and it was actually an interesting set. I won't say it was as hard as the CAT sets, but it was definitely a very, very interesting and unconventional set. So as many sets as possible from wherever possible. In fact, I would encourage you to solve Sudoku, Kakuro, all these puzzles because they help you with building your logical ability. The kind of sets that have been coming in the CAT exam, I personally don't think you would be able to find any resource that helps you exactly tackle the same kind of questions. The mock tests that you take are definitely a great resource. So take as many mocks as possible. Even if you already have mocks and you're going for free mocks, just attempt the DILR set because the questions would definitely not feature anywhere else. So attempt them from as many places as possible. That's what I would say. Okay. I'm consistent. Adi is saying I'm consistent in VARC. Sometimes I solve an RC so easily. And I'm not consistent in VARC. Sometimes I solve an RC so easily. Sometimes I don't even understand a bit to do with it. So Adi, the same thing. I'm not sure if you attended the last class, but ideally what you should be doing is you have to just take a note of what is written where. It doesn't matter what the question is saying, what the RC is about. It doesn't even have to do anything with the questions also. In fact, if it's a difficult RC to read, chances are that it will be easier to solve. You'll have more factual questions. So personally, I would suggest not to get overwhelmed with the topic, not to get overwhelmed with the what is the like subtopic or genre of that particular RC. You just have to focus on what is written where. As long as you're following that technique, you won't associate yourself a lot with the RC. Rohan is saying, how should one study on a daily basis? Should one touch all the three subjects or club one with the other? This one I already answered. Just pick up one of your weakest and club it with another. Could you please tell me what are the important chapters in LR section? So like I mentioned, in LR, there is nothing called as important. So I don't know how many of you have used the Arun Sharma book. There it has bifurcated the LR section into the sets that appear in the CAT exam, like the pattern, or at least the main topics that come in the CAT exam, like Venn diagrams and all these circular arrangements and all these other things. And there is a section for the non-CAT related exams as well. What I would tell you is I personally solved everything that was given in the non-CAT exam section also, simply because it really helps build up your logical ability. Even though blood relations would ideally not be a part of the CAT exam, like the exact questions would not come in there. But these type of constraints that come in the CAT exam definitely involve blood relations or directions or all these other clocks and other sequence series types of questions that you used to have. So I would highly recommend you to solve as much material as possible for LR. It's all about building that knack, right? So like I told you, when I saw the solution, I noticed these tricks. This happens because you're practicing so much, you tend to pick these things up. So try developing your reasoning ability in general and not specifically for this exam. Okay, with CAT preparation, can I give SPI clerk exam? That's absolutely up to you, like totally your choice. Okay, do we have more questions? On which topic should we solve an RC right now? Solve it on anything, like do a mix of these things. Can you define a particular time one should complete the syllabus for giving mocks? So Shubham, ideally what you should be doing is you should be taking a couple of mocks since the beginning of your preparation. If you have just started CAT preparation right now, even then you should be taking mocks every single time. There might be a lot of questions that you won't be able to attempt. For now you should know what is the pattern of the exam, how should you attempt, at least you know the attempt strategy, right? So in DILR, even though you may not actually be able to solve the questions, but you will always be able to understand what should be the order of questions. And when you note it down on a piece of paper, you can then compare it with the solution and see whether that set was actually easy, medium, or difficult. So did you make the right order choice? As long as you are attempting the paper with the intent to first of all understand the pattern, and second of all to understand this flow of choosing the right questions, you would be sorted. So even in the con section where you're actually supposed to cover the entire syllabus and only then you'll be able to improve your attempt rate, you should be practicing the rounds technique already. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of rounds technique. If you haven't, do watch tomorrow's video. But rounds technique basically means you have to go through the quant section or the questions that come in there in multiple rounds. In the first round, you have to scan the easier questions, the shorter questions, the familiar questions. In round 2, you have to take up the medium ones, and finally the ones that you were not able to solve. So when you practice, when you are taking a mock right now, you'll be able to use this attempt strategy again and again. So right now, that should be your concern. Your concern should never be to score well at this stage. I personally feel my score started improving only somewhere after August end. Till then I was majorly focusing on improving this ability. Like someone else also said, right, that they panic when they see a set. August tak my intent was understand the pattern, just fine tune my attempt strategy, because whatever I'm sharing is my attempt strategy, it may not work for you. Fine tune it basis your own requirement, and just get used to the fact that this is how I'll be taking the paper. Then you start working on your weaker areas. So ideally, and that's also why you shouldn't feel demotivated at all basis your marks, this is the time to fine tune your attempt strategy. Okay. I don't have any extracurricular activities to show in my profile. Pragati is saying, will it affect my admission? Okay. Even though this is not CAT related, Pragati, what I'll suggest you is that imagine it from this lens, right? When you appear for the CAT exam, your CAT marks will be shared with for the shortlisting process. After that, your interviewers don't even know what is there in, let's say, your CAT. Like they don't have your CAT score sheet unless you tell them yourself. They don't know how much you scored in the CAT exam. After that, the interview stage is all about identifying whether you are a right fit for the batch, which means, is there any value that you bring onto the table? Would you help others learn? And second, whether or not you have the ability to learn from them. These are the only two things that they're actually evaluating. So when they want to evaluate whether you will add any value to the batch or not, how would you prove your worth? In the entire form that you fill for IIM admissions, like I filled so many of them, so I know for a fact not even a single form will actually ask you for these extracurricular activities at, let's say, a school level or a college level. They would only ask for extraordinary qualities like national level or state level achievements, and not a lot of people have that. Let me also be very frank. One day we were sitting at LKP, which is, you might have seen IIM Ahmedabad ka photo, right? That green colored garden, Louis Khan Plaza, right? LKP. We were sitting there, and we as a batch, when we just, the orientation session was going on, we were just discussing among ourselves how many of us filled that extracurricular wala section. And you'll be surprised to know how many of us did not have anything to fill up there. I think in one of those columns, like out of 3 points, I mentioned one in one column, and then there were three separate for co-curricular. There I mentioned three. I also had only one extracurricular achievement that I could put up there. Not everybody has points to put up there, and this is the reality. They only ask you to fill them up so that in case your overall profile is not as good, for example, you don't have very good academic marks, in that case they would see your form and know, okay, you have extracurriculars. They might end up asking you questions on that. Now, if you also don't have good academics and you also don't have extracurricular activities, How would you prove your worth in a particular interview setting? If you can do it in the interview by the way you present yourself, if you can do it by the way you talk to them and you tell them your interest areas. Let's say, for example, I liked advertising. If you like a particular industry and you can talk comfortably about it, if you can impress them on the basis of that particular area, then the job is sorted. But if you don't have something, let's say you have bad academics, you don't have extracurricular achievements, you don't have any interest areas also, how would you prove your worth? How would you say that you can add value to the batch? That is entirely the question. Nobody is actually saying that you need extracurriculars necessarily. You need to show your worth in an interview, and you can ideally do that if you have something to show. It could be work experience. You can gain co-curricular activities, participate in case study competitions, take up courses. Anything that showcases your interest is good enough. It's not mandatory to have everything in there. I hope this is clear. Felt like I rambled for a couple of minutes. Yeah, okay. I think I've been taking questions from the doubt session itself. I haven't taken even a single question from the text box. So all of them have went up. We just have a few minutes. So in case you want to ask something, you can put them in the chat box. I'll just extend the class by 5 minutes then. Okay. Indranuj has asked, I failed to do the DIs in one go without seeing the solutions. Is that normal? Yeah, I mean, so if you've just started off, or even if you're just preparing from 2-3 months, it's perfectly normal. Even if you're not able to solve it, just check what the solution was, come back to the question, you should be able to do it. Like, you should be able to do it the next time. John is asking, will this be available? Yes, this is a recorded session. It will be available. Shruti is asking any other suggestions for SNAP. So I took only the CAT exam. I personally don't know about the other exams, but I can try bringing someone who appeared for SNAP. What was your quant score in CAT? I don't remember my scaled score, but my percentile in quant was 95. In DILR, it was 99, which is why I'm not taking a quant masterclass. Can we do it only with LR? No. Saurabh, you shouldn't take this risk, because like I showed you in one of the papers, even though in that case, out of 5 sets, 4 were LR, but it could very well have been a DI paper also. So don't take this risk, do both of them. Okay. How to deal with exhaustion after studying, and if target hasn't reached and we still have to study? You mean like the daily targets that you set for yourself? I think first of all, Hardik, because I don't know how you're setting your targets, set some realistic ones. Like if, for example, let's say, so I made this blunder when I was preparing for the CAT exam. I was very optimistic कि मैं कर लूंगी, ठीक है? So in one day, I used to set up a target कि पूरा chapter complete करना है, and I was following Arun Sharma book at that time. That, and I don't know which chapter it was. It had probably 100 questions or so. I sat to solve them. It took so much time that I realized that you shouldn't really be pushing your boundaries like this. Set an achievable target first of all. So for example, in cons, I used to set 30 questions a day. That I was able to do comfortably. So set a target that you at least feel comfortable with. That's first. Second, you set up a time, set up a duration throughout the day when you feel the most comfortable doing that exercise. For example, मेरा schedule ऐसे होता था कि morning में I used to have college, then I used to come back, go to the coaching institute, attempt for like 2 hours का या 1 hour का जितना भी class है, then I used to come back, then उसके बाद थोड़ा सा freshen up होके I had a time slot after 7 p.m. where I sat for 2 hours straight, 7 to 9 before dinner, I studied for the CAT exam. Once you allocate that time during the day, you are less likely to be inconsistent. Like you would follow it because you've set that time. Even now I follow this because when I have to record videos for the channel, there is a certain time throughout the day when I know that this is the time when I have to record the video. It keeps me more consistent. So I would personally recommend this. Anish is saying, is it very late to start preparing for CAT 2020? I'm starting this month. Actually, it depends on how comfortable you are with all these sets and all these different types of questions that come in the CAT exam. Personally, I would say you can still do it as long as quant is not a problem, because quant requires, at least for me, it required minimum 2 to 3 months of covering the basics entirely. If you have time, if you can put in that much time, then definitely you can still do it. So, yep. Purva is saying, yeah, your sessions are so useful. Please try to do this monthly or something for strategy related doubts. Yeah, sure. Like, see, the only thing is, as long as I can keep adding value to your time, I would be happy to do it. I just don't want to take sessions and not be able to share something. That would be like a blunder. So, yeah, as long as I can do that, can do it, sure. Did you compromise on your sleep during your preparation? Absolutely not. This is something you should never do. So, pata hai, IIM Ahmedabad mein, we used to sleep very less on some days, like 3-4 hours or so. But even then, we knew we had to cover up on that sleep somehow at the end of the week. So, for example, this week has been extremely tiring for me. But at the same time, I know I have to cover up for this week, for the coming weekend. Like, I'm looking forward to the weekend to actually sleep as much as possible. Never ever compromise on your sleep. Like I was suggesting Hardik also, you need to have a time slot throughout the day when you study. Even if you are a working professional, most working professionals either stayed up late if their job shift was after 10 a.m. or 11 a.m., or if it was early, then they tried to wake up as quickly as possible. So don't compromise on your sleep a lot, like at all. It's not worth it. Kunal is saying, need some suggestions for comprehension. I mostly end up with loss in connection with the paragraph. Like, you have to simply summarize the paragraph in a few words. Even if you are, let's say, not able to understand it completely, that's perfectly fine. In summarizing, basically your intent should be what is written where. So as long as you pick up on the key idea using repetition or using the other techniques, you'll be able to at least identify what the para is talking about, even if it doesn't make complete sense. Usko utna karke just leave it at that and start paraphrasing the rest of it. Some RCs in general are difficult, but like I said, it might be difficult in the face of it when you're reading it, but the questions might be pretty straightforward. So just read it with that intent. Naman is asking, Dee, can you make a video on how to concentrate and avoid distractions during solving the RC? Naman, if you have seen the last session, ek baar wo dekh lo, to avoid distraction. Like, I feel so, in general, CAT ka jo paper hai, you need to be very attentive throughout. That is there. But it might so happen कि within an RC ना हो, लेकिन एक RC complete करने के बाद next RC में you're facing this trouble. Personally, I would say just one RC का practice as much as possible. So जब मैं practice करती थी VRC की, I tried picking up RCs which at least had more than 8 paragraphs. That helped me because जब paper में there came a paragraph with about 6 passages, my attention span was already comfortable with reading 8 paragraphs of RC. So I was able to do it. I think if you practice with more number of paragraphs when you're practicing offline, that will help you when you solve it online. So yeah, I think we've already exceeded the time. Guys, how about if you have more questions tomorrow when the video comes up at 7, you can put them down there and then I can take them up. I'm also supposed to reply to the previous videos comments, by the way. So yeah, thank you so much guys for watching this. I hope this was helpful. Awesome. Thanks guys.